Welcome back. And my friends, today, Saudi Arabia, Microsoft Excel Power Platform, one place in finance solution where we connect, where we learn and we share. And today we have a very special guest who is from India originally, but is based in Dubai. And he has some amazing superhero skills where he'll be showing about the tricks, DAX and data modeling, tricks. So I was very looking forward for this presentation. So let me welcome my guest, Chandeep Chhabra. And Chandeep has his website and he has a lot of blogs, amazing blogs, and I got a chance to work with Chandeep with a project goal where we have contributed, world experts have come together and we have made a course for the charity during the COVID. So all that contribution, 100% contribution of that course was being given to the charity called Goal, and they have used it for face mask and for all the COVID rescue operations. So from that time, I know Chandeep, and I've been following him and his blogs and posts. Super amazing, he posts some great stuff over there. Got to learn a lot of from him, and today we got an opportunity to invite Chandeep, and I'll let Chandeep speak about him. And so let me quickly. Just let me tell you about myself. If you don't know me, I'm Faraz Shaikh, founder of excelexciting.com. I'm an MCD, MIE, office master, and I'm a YouTuber, blogger, and I run my meetups over here, Microsoft Excel for Power Platform in Saudi Arabia. And basically, I'm from India, but I'm based in Saudi Arabia, and I'm a supply chain guy, logistics guy. And I love Excel and I love logistics, in fact, Microsoft Office. And my mission is to help people with Microsoft Office solution, find them the easiest solutions with my team, with my friends over here, and give you the best what is there. And equally, I'm expecting to gain some knowledge and share knowledge on Microsoft Office applications. So that was quick about me, and thank you. I would just like to announce today that my website have reached 100,000 views. And thank you everybody for your contribution and for liking my website and for visiting and giving your positive updates that you like the post, and I'll be keep writing and trying my best to cover up with blogs and videos. And inshallah, let's see we reach to some more exciting numbers with Excel Exciting. And these were some of our past events where we have Ken, Gasper, Oz, Tanya, Alan Murray, and Rahim Oakley, and Pat Pagam. And today we have on the hot seat our guest Chandeep Chhabra. And these are the upcoming events in Microsoft Excel Power Platform Saudi Arabia. These are the one which we are expecting 21st September. Mark will be talking about some getting started with Office scripts. So he'll be talking about automation over there, mostly about automation, Power Automate, and trying to mix up some scripts. So we'll be looking forward with Mark. Then we have 13th October 2021, Bob Ulmis. He'll be coming and talking about tips and tricks. So it will be interesting to see. And Bob is the MVP who has been the longest time as an MVP Microsoft Valuable Professional. And so it would be nice to see from Bob what we have. And you can just quickly scan the QR code. So you can straight away jump into the session and you can use that short URL also. And it's not only happening only in Saudi Arabia, but there is a lot of things happening around the globe. So you can go and catch up this schedule, which I'm posting it every month on the LinkedIn and on maybe on 1st or 2nd of every month. So where I'm consolidating all the list of the events happening around the globe and try to push it on the meetup page, on the LinkedIn page of Excel Exciting. And even you can follow the link Excel Exciting/meetup. The page is still under development, because we wanted to make some more dynamic things. So I'm still working on the page, but you can still feel free to use it. You can go and check, you can explore the page over there, and you can get to see all the upcoming events for the August as well as for the September. And from the community, whoever is over here right now and they would like to share their superhero skills, or they want to share about Microsoft Office, Power Platform, PowerPoint, anything, even why not Google Sheets also? Why not Google also? You can come and share, you can come forward and share about it. And we would definitely like to learn from you. And just a quick housekeeping, you know very well, this session is getting live streamed right now on YouTube. And if you ever wanted to go and check this session, you can go to YouTube/Excel Exciting, and the playlist of Saudi Arabia. You can find these sessions, all the sessions which has taken in the past available over there. So just for a better connectivity and experience, you know, you can just mute your mic. And if you have any difficulty in joining, you can just exit and rejoin it. Like I was having it. So same way, if you have any questions, how would you like to take questions, Chandeep? Would you like to have it on chat, or how would you like to?
Yeah, you can unmute and speak on the go if you were stuck with anything and stuff. So I've also shared the file in case you want to share the file with people.
Perfect. Yeah, I will be sharing the file. Also for people who are not able to attend it, I'll be later on sharing it on the meetup RSP who have done. Okay, so we will be having some time for Q&A also, but if something you really wanted to ask Chandeep, then you can feel free to unmute and you can ask or drop it in the chat. So welcome Chandeep, and floor is yours, and I'll leave you and you can just tell us about yourself, and then you can show us your superhero trick today for DAX and data modeling tricks.
Sure. Thank you, Faraz, for having me. Of course, it's been a pleasure. I'm not much of a speaker, although. So off late, Alan was the first one at London Excel Meetup group to invite me for the first time, and then the saga of going to these meetups began from there. Christian was another one who invited me. Thanks, Christian, for you too. And then I'm just here. So liking these so far. So I'm happy to come here and share a few interesting tactics with you. Now, I have one slide, although I just hate presentations, but I have just one single slide for you. Obviously, you know my name. My name is Chandeep. I have been born and brought up in India. Until last year, December 2020, I was living in India. And then I decided that, hey, you know, let's just do some fun, or let's just uproot my entire life and I'll just go and stay in Dubai or some other country. And my brother already stays here. So I thought I'll just go stay with him for some time. So I'm here in Dubai, and I'm continuing to do the same work that I used to do it in India. So I have a small, you know, business, which is where I do a lot of training and consulting work for small and very large corporations in India. Now the work has a little bit expanded towards the Western side as well, US and some other countries as well. But yeah, that's my general work. I tend to work a lot with data. I tend to do a lot of Power BI work, Excel work, consulting work, training work, that sort of stuff. Apart from the time that is left over from my actual work, I also do write a blog at goodly.co.in. You can take a look at that. And also I run a YouTube channel, which I wasn't really very serious about. I mean, I have this YouTube channel for the past, I don't know, 6-7 years, but I was never really serious about YouTube. Once in a while, I would make a video. It's just that in COVID, I had nothing else to do. All the work that I had, that I was getting had suddenly stopped because of COVID. And so I get to focus a little bit on YouTube, and then just became, a lot of people subscribed and stuff like that. So I just continued to make videos and stuff like that. And yeah, now it's a thing that I have to kind of keep on going with. So I like it also. So yeah, that's a little thing about me. Now, what I'm here to talk about is an interesting topic: how data modeling can actually make tax easy. Now, if you have been following any of the prodigies on Power BI, DAX, Marco Alberto, Phil Seamark, Matt Ellington, any of the prodigies who talks about Power Query, who talks about DAX and data modeling, you would have heard these people often saying that you should actually build a good data model. You should actually build a good data model. Data model simply means that how well are your tables connected at the back that support all the calculations. If you have weird connections, and weird relationships and stuff like that, obviously you'll have to write far more sophisticated DAX to make your calculations right. Otherwise, straight sum count calculations are pretty much everything that you would need on very, very gigantic tables as well. So that's what I'm here to talk about. In the past, I have done several mistakes of building up bad data models and then eventually correcting them, and the calculations became lightning fast. I'm gonna be sharing two examples with you specifically in this particular session. If the time allows, I'll discuss two. If time doesn't allow, I will just discuss one example. And I will be specifically focusing about how well could you build a relationship at the back so that your calculation and your DAX becomes ridiculously easy, right? That's what I will be talking about. And maybe perhaps I'll also talk about that if we did not do the data modeling, we would have to write some pretty sophisticated DAX to actually drive the calculation. So I'll show you both the approaches, and then you can actually decide for yourself. I'm expecting the audiences here today to already have a bit of understanding of what Power BI is, what is Power Query, what relationships are, what exactly is DAX and calculate, and a whole lot of stuff. I'm just expecting a bit of mature audiences here. So all of the things that I'm going to speak about is going to sound Hebrew to you in case you don't know any of that stuff, but I'll try to be as simple as possible, as clear as possible. Even if you don't know the stuff precisely in terms of calculations and DAX and stuff, you'd still be able to at least make sense out of the entire session. Yeah. I've also shared the files with you in case you really want to kind of get your hands dirty and practice along. Be more than happy to do that. And in case you have any questions along in the session, you are doing it, you don't understand anything, you have a side question, feel free to just stop me. It'll be hard to take a look at the chat and do the session at the same time. So feel free to just stop me and ask a question. I'll be glad to answer. We will, I believe, dedicatedly have like an exclusive Q&A session at the end, which is where I can answer more of your questions, but I'd be happy to answer any of the questions right during the session as well. Alrighty, let's just jump over. That was my single slide. And I am just going to now open the Power BI file that I have and start to do some calculations right here. So if you take a look at the model that I have here, in this particular model, it's a very straightforward star schema. I have already created a date table, which I like to call it as calendar. I have a customers table, I have a products table, and I have a sales table, all linked through one-to-many relationships. Nothing too complicated about it. If you've built any simple model linked to tables, I'm sure you would understand what this means. And I have also written a total sales calculation, which is right here. This total sales calculation is nothing but the total of the amount column, right? So if I just go and hop over and take a look at this total sales calculation, you'll find that all that I'm doing is summing one particular column in the sales table. So sales amount total is nothing but total sales. Very simple. Let's make a simple pivot table. So I start from here, make a simple pivot table. I go and say, this is my year. Year comes in. I go say, hey, month. The month comes in. Put that in the rows. Expand the pivot table right here. And I am just also going to say, what was that? Stepping. And make it as a step layer. I like it that way. All right. I present my total sales against that. Nice and easy. I get total sales across all the years and all the months. Let's just go take a peek at what are the different columns that we have in the sales table. And hopefully I'll be able to explain to you what I'm trying to achieve here. If I just go and take a look at my sales table right here, in my sales table, I have which date on which the product was ordered. That's my order date. What was the due date when the product becomes due, and when do you eventually ship it? So there are 3 dates that you have. Now, if you work with any dense business process, you are definitely going to have more than one dates that actually mark out the entire journey of the transaction or whatever flow of the business is. So as of now, I have an order date. The order gets due by a certain date, and the order eventually gets shipped. Now, if I would like to find out that, hey, how many orders or what value of orders are actually getting, let's say, due, what value of orders are getting due. Note that there is not another total sales column or sales amount column for the due date. It's the same order, which is the same order, 4.99, which gets ordered on a particular date. So let's just say it gets ordered on the 19th, or sorry, it gets ordered on the 12th of June, and the same product or transaction gets due on the 24th June, and it gets shipped on the 19th of June. So the same transaction flows through multiple phases of time. I'd like to find out what is the value of the orders which are actually getting due. Okay. I just want to actually take the total again of the amount column, which is this particular column, which is nothing but my total sales. But I'd like to consider the filter for the due date or the ship date, whatever I'm trying to calculate. I don't really want to consider the order date. As of now, if you take a look at the relationship between the two tables, as of now, I have created a primary relationship between the date table and when the product was actually ordered, which is nothing but the order date. Now, if I want to find out that, hey, what is the total amount of the transactions which are due or which are shipped, then I need to create a secondary and inactive relationship between the two tables. I'm sure you would know that if you've done any bit of DAX. So I'm just going to take my date table and I'm just going to link that with my due date. That's one relation. It's inactive because there is already one active relationship. You can just have one active relationship. I'll take my order date once again and link it to the ship date, and I have now two inactive relationships. Fair. I'm going to write another calculation. So I'll just right click and I'll say new measure. I'm going to write another calculation. What is that calculation? That calculation is nothing but total due. Total due, which is nothing but I'll just do a calculate, and I'd like to say I'd like to calculate my total sales, but I'm just trying to change the filter context. Let me help you understand. If you are new to the use relationship formula, let me help you understand what I'm trying to do. Once the active relationship is working, Power BI by default, for any filters, which is the year filter and the month filter currently, for any filters, Power BI accepts the dark line as the standard relationship that traverses the calendar to the sales table. That's how the filters are applied. Any filter that you would want to apply, hey, I would like to take the date and I would like to filter my order date. That's how the standard relationship is. This is by default. Now you're saying that, hey, Power BI, don't follow the standard relationship, follow the inactive relationship, which is possibly for the due date, which is right here, right? Follow this relationship. So I'm going to, and I'm sure you already know that calculate allows me to change the filter context. So I can actually say, hey, calculate, please don't let Power BI use the standard relationship. I will tell you what relationship to use, which is nothing but my calendar date and my due date. That's my use relationship. I close the bracket, commit to the formula, press enter. And if I now drag that particular total due into my pivot table, I get to see the result. Now what I see is, if you want to read this particular number, what you get to see is that about 473,000 was the total sales made. Of the total sales made, how much was due in that particular month? 259 was due in that particular month. Let's read the next number. 506,000 was the total sales made, and how much of due was in that particular month? 501 was due in that particular month. Now the second due, which is 501, may have some spillage that is actually coming from the previous month. So I may see some of the values that got due of the month of July that appear in the month of August. Pretty standard, which is a fancy way of saying that if I go ahead and apply, let's just actually create a new column here. And I'm just going to say that that's my year, month. I'm just creating a column. That's not a good practice, but I'm just trying to show you some things. Okay. So year, month column for order date. And I'm just going to say that I'd like to do, what was that? Format function. And I'd like to write the order date, and I'd like to write MMM and YY. That's what I'd like to do. Close the bracket, commit to the formula, press enter. And I will also create one more column. And I'll say year, month for, let's say, due date. due date. What was that? Again, format, my order date, and that was MMM and YY. All right. Now, if I just happen to apply a filter for, let's say, July 2001, okay, on the order date, you will find that once this particular filter is applied, the items that get due are going to spill over 2 months, July and August. That means if I take a look at this filter, I only get to see July. Oh, this is order date, this is due date. Are all the items getting due this month? I believe not. Let's just take a look. Total due, there are due next month. July 01, that's correct. Anyways, I'm not sure what's going on here, but anyways, I should actually be seeing two values in here. Some orders getting due in July and some orders actually spilling over to the next month and getting due in the next month. That's fine. Now, let's create one more calculation. And let's see that if we want to find total shipped, how do we do that? It's the same thing. I'm just going to copy that very calculation for now and right click and say new measure. And I'm going to say that here is my total shipped. And I'm going to say that use relationship between the calendar and not the due date, but actually what the ship date. All right, press enter, drag it down to the next cell right here, and I get total ship. Now I get to see what is my total sales of that particular month, of the sales that I have done in that month, how much of the value of the transactions become due in the next month, in the same month, and how much of that becomes due in the same, or how much of that becomes shipped in the same month, so on and so forth. Now, once you take a look at this table is pretty good. Somebody can turn around and ask a logistics-based question and say that, hey, can you perhaps show me the breakup of this particular value? That how is it split? How much of that 501,000 is actually coming as a due amount from the July month of sales? That means, can you just break this up as to how this is broken up in the previous month? How much is it coming from the previous month, and how much is it actually coming from the current month? And so you'd have to then start to think of ways to be able to write the DAX that if this is the total due of the current month, how much of the value is actually becoming due in the current month, and how much is it coming from the previous month? Now you can sure enough go write some sophisticated DAX, and I can show you that. But wouldn't it be nice to solve this problem using some data modeling techniques? By data modeling, what I mean to say is that I'm going to start to play around not with DAX, but perhaps more with the table connections at the back end. If I start to play the table connections at the back end, I will perhaps make my DAX easier and also more flexible and things like that, perhaps more faster as well. So to be able to solve the problem, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start to form two calendar tables. But before I start to present you the solution as to what the data modeling solution is, let's try to write the DAX that is actually going to solve the problem where I am trying to figure out that how much of that 500,000 of the total due is actually coming from the same month. That means how much of August's sales have become due. I'm not really concerned about the previous month. I'm just concerned about the current month. How do we do that? So let's just go revise our total due calculation. In the total due calculation, what I'm going to say is something like this. I'm going to say that something like filter. The easy way to understand is that if I apply a filter on the order date and the filter on the due date, wherever the month and the year is the same, I would like to pick up that particular values. The month and the year should be the same, and I'd like to pick up that particular value. How do we do that? Let's just take a look. So I'm just going to go over to total due, and I'm just going to write a filter function. So I'm just going to say filter all. Let's just ignore filters of two values. One is my order date, and the other one is the due date. And then what's my filter expression? So I'm just going to write something like a format. I'd like to check if the month and the year is the same or not. So format. I'd like to pick up my order date, and I'd like to say that the year, MMM, the year and the month is equal to format again, this time due date, again, the same thing, year, and MMM. That is my calculation. If I now press enter on this particular calculation, what I'm going to see now is a number which is far lesser than 500 and 1000. Now, this is the number that is due, that was sold in the current month, also became due in the current month. If the sales of the current month are spilling over multiple months, then somebody could also ask you, hey, this is okay. The due is becoming, this is the amount which is becoming due in the current month of the sales of the current month. But could you maybe tell me some other calculation and things like that? Perhaps what's the due which is coming from the previous 2 months or previous 3 months and things like that. How do you, like, would you keep on creating measures after measures to be able to trace the data from the previous month? It's going to be hard. Like, you'll have to write a lot of DAX for that, or maybe perform something very sophisticated. Now, I will start to solve this particular problem through data modeling. What I mean is that I will start to modify the way my tables are linked at the back to be able to solve this problem. What do? I'm going to go for the second table, second date table. So I just already have one date table right here. I'm going to go for the second table. Please take a look. For now, I have a code, the DAX code for calendar table. I can just copy that, go over to the table tools right here, make a new table, and I'm just going to call this as my calendar second table. So this is my calendar 2. The code remains the same, no difference. It just creates a calendar. I just have to do a small tweak. Sort the months in the index order. I know everybody knows that. So sort the month in the index order, and I've sorted that. I need to form the relationships once again. So I will just go ahead. The calendar 2, which is lying lonely on the right-hand side, I can just start to link that calendar table again with all the columns of the sales table. The exact same relationships, no difference whatsoever. So my active relationship is again going to be with the order date, and that forms the active relationship. Nothing changes. My, again, 2 inactive relationships are again going to be from the due date. So this is an inactive relationship, and one more inactive relationship through the ship date, and that actually forms the relationship. The same relationship that I had it initially, I form it once again. All right. Now, let me first help you understand what is the kind of output that I'm trying to visualize that will help me solve the problem. So let's just for now get rid of the totals, everything else, and let's just kind of work with total sales right here. Let me just open up Excel to kind of build some sample output to help you understand that what is it that I'm trying to achieve from this table. If you note that the first column is the year column, the second column is the month column, and then I have several months right here. So for now, I'm just going to write the month numbers. So let's just say that I have July, August, September, October, November, and December, just 5-6 months. Now, this month has a sale value. So this is sales. There is a sales value right here. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to write my months again right here. So 7th month, 8th month, 9th month, 10th month, 11th month, and then 12th month. These are my months right here once again. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to write a calculation. Let's just kind of push this down. I'd like to write maybe something like this. 1 second. So this is, let's say, sales due. This is, let's say, XX, whatever number. And then I'd like to say that something like, sorry, this is my sales. And then I'd like to write sales due. And I'd like to kind of take this number, whatever is the sales in that particular month, which is the 7th month, the July month, and I'd like to spread it over all the other months when it becomes actually due. So if, let's say, 50% of the sales is due in the current month, I just calculate that number and I write 50% here. 40% becomes due here. So I calculate the number and write 40% here. And then eventually 10% becomes due here. And eventually this is like nothing. This is like nothing, right? This is how I'm trying to build it. And I can take it further and I can do something like further up and I can say sales shipped. And I can do something like, hey, I don't know, maybe 60% of the sales were shipped. So this was the total order that you got in the month. 50% of that order became due in the current month, but you shipped 60% of the order. Then maybe 15% of the order got shipped in this particular month. So that makes it what, 75, and then 25% of this order got shipped in this month. And then it's kind of blank like this, nothing. So just right here. And this is how I'd like to carry this exercise out for all the months so that I can see that what is the sales that I'm getting in the current month and how each and every month there is a breakup of the sales between the due and the shipped through data modeling, not any sophisticated DAX. That's what I'd like to do. How do we build this layout conveniently without much hassles of DAX? The one thing that you are going to note is that the year and the month columns, which have been used in the rows section of the pivot table as of now, which are flowing in all the rows, also need to be there in the columns. In a pivot table, I don't know if you know that, you can drag it like one column in either into rows or into the columns. You can't really drag the month into the rows and also drag the same month in the columns. You can't do that, right? And therefore, I have created a secondary calendar table to be able to facilitate that particular calculation. Let's just see. So what I'm going to do is I have created another table, which is my calendar table, and which has also got the year and the month column. I can quickly grab that particular year and the month column and put that in the rows section, sorry, the column section of the pivot table, drill down on the columns, expand that, expand that. What happened? Not expanding. Year in the columns. That's strange. Okay, let's just do it again. So, oh, sorry, my bad. Calendar 2, right? Calendar 2. So from the calendar 2, I take my year and I take my month and put that out in the columns. I drill down on the columns and I drill it further down. And you can see that that's my calendar table that I was expecting to create. Now, as of now, we just have one particular calculation. Let me just zoom in the size of the text so that everybody can read it. All right. Now, what I have is the very sales value. So this particular sales value, which is July and July, matches up. There's no confusion. August sales value, September sales value, October sales value, so on and so forth. Now, I'd like to create more calculations of the shipped and of the due calculations that actually spread out in multiple months to start to show that how the sales was broken down and that was actually trailing up in the following months and being served in the following months. Let's just do that. Think about it. Let me, as of now, change my calculation, show you what it looks like in the current context, and then help you understand that what changes am I going to do to my calculation so that it reflects the way that I would want it to. Let me just go and pick up my due calculation. And I'm just going to get rid of that filter that I have written. And I'm going to turn back to the original DAX that I had written, which was nothing but use relationship, which was activating the inactive relationship, which was from the first calendar table, linking up to my due date. Close that, press the enter, drag the formula into my pivot table. All right. Now I can see that this particular calculation, which is sales due, is actually showing up from top to bottom, like from this to this. I can now see that what was the sales that was actually sold in the month, sold in the month of July, and in the month of July, how much of that got due? 259,000 got due, and 213,000 got due in the next month. If more sales was getting due in the following months, then you would have seen those numbers appear right here. Now, I don't really want top to bottom representation. I want left to right representation, like this way, this way. How do I do that? One of the options is that you can either take because as of now, these two are nothing but your calendar year, the calendar 1 year and the month. And these two are nothing but your calendar 2 year and the month. So you can swap them. If you swap them, this from horizontal is going to come to vertical, and from vertical is going to come to horizontal, or you can just change the DAX. So I can do anything, whichever is okay with you. So I can just go over to total view, and I can say that, hey, the relationship is going to be not with the first table, but the second table, because the second table or the year and the month column of the second table is the column which is actually flowing from left to right. These are the month and the year columns from the second table. So I'd like to be sliced horizontally, not vertically. So I can just use that. So total view, I can say, hey, this is going to be from calendar 2. I think there's no space here. Calendar, no, there's a space here. Calendar 2, and this is actually good to go. Now, if you take a look at this particular calculation tells me that this was the total amount that was sold in the month of July. Of that, how much became due in the month of July? 259, and how much of that became due in the next month? This much became due in the next month. I'm sure you're not really convinced with the output that it looks. I mean, it spills over to the next column and stuff like that, because the one that we made in Excel was pretty easy to read. I mean, I can see that how much is becoming due and one below the other, which is nothing complicated. All that you can want is that as of now, your calculations are flowing across in the columns. This is first column, second column, first column, second column. Your columns are nothing but calculations, which are your measures, but I would like to present my measures into rows. That means here. So underneath July, I'd like to see two calculations. One is sales and due. Swap that, nothing complicated. I can just click on the pivot table, go over to the format. In the format, I can say that I'd like to show my calculation on rows. I search for that, click on that, and the calculations actually come into rows. Let's create another calculation, which is total view right here. Copy that. And new measure, paste that, and I can say something like, where are you? Calendar 2 date, not sales due date, but perhaps we've already built that calculation actually. So total shipped, but since I'm trying to follow everything from left to right, I can say something like, hey, this relationship is going to be from calendar 2 and are you not working? Space. Okay. So calendar 2 and then date column and the ship date column, press enter. And I can just conveniently drag this calculation up into my pivot table. And this actually gives me a pretty decent output. Now I can conveniently find how much of the sales was sold in the current month of that products that were sold, how much became due in the current month, how much became due in the next month. And if you take the horizontal total this way, you're going to find the same 501,000 as a total that was being due in the entire month, whatever that number might be, 473, and the next month was 506 becoming due and stuff like that, which is right here, 501,000. And you can read the pivot table in two ways. Now you get to know that what is the spillage of the sales that is happening, which are happening in the current month, how are they becoming due, how are they being shipped, and things like that. You can trace the entire value chain of different dates of that particular transaction, and even the sums of that transaction pretty conveniently through this. Now, don't be mistaken. This is actually going to be filtered by any slicer. So that means that this particular calculation, which is the total sales calculation, this calculation can be filtered by the customer, can be filtered by a particular product, and things like that. So if you believe that in the entire value chain, some product is getting like obnoxiously high time or something like that, you can actually go trace that. If I just bring in the filter for a particular subcategory of the product, and let's just say that I want to take a look at maybe perhaps the jerseys. I click on jerseys, and I now get to see that how is the supply, like the sales of the jerseys, the due of the jerseys, and the shipped of the jerseys, and things like that, right? No sophisticated DAX. Straightforward sum of a column and using inactive relationships between two calendar tables to be able to solve a seemingly difficult otherwise problem through just data modeling. That's example number one. Faraz, do we have time for another example?
I have a question, Chandeep.
Yes,
Christian, would it be much better from usability point of view to name the second calendar as the due date calendar and do the name of the columns due month, due year, due quarter?
You can actually do that. In fact, there is a lot of formatting that I would recommend on this particular pivot table to make it like spectacularly easier for the user to conveniently understand that how do you read it, like how do you kind of process it. That could perhaps require renaming of a few columns, renaming of the table instead, doing a lot of visual cues on the visual here to be able to understand this particular flow of reading of the information. So yes, you're right.
Thank you.
Faraz, do we have time for another example?
Yes, Chandeep. Yes, we are having time.
All right. Continue with me. Now, let me just kind of show you another example. At the start of the year, all executives sit down, they talk to the management tells them that here is your budget. Here is what we are expecting you to deliver in terms of sales. And they give you a budget. Those are broad numbers. They are expecting you that the actual sales should at least meet the budget. They plan that on an Excel and they give it to you. You load that into Power BI. Let me show it to you. So I'm just going to show up another table that I have created, which is lying on the side as of now, which is my budgets table. No relationship so far. I'm just going to go over to my budgets table and show you what the table is. Really small table. If you take a look at this particular budgets table, I have a subcategory of the product. That means I know that in which year, what is the budget that I'm supposed to go and sell it for. So in 2001, for mountain bikes, the management has requested that you at least do $500,000 in sales, 541,000. That's the expectation. Now I have to map it against my actual sales and find something like a variance or things like that. Now this is a pretty convenient exercise. You can actually do that, not a problem. We have the year. From the year, you can form a date. You can link it up to your calendar table. You can actually create a bridge table in between for subcategory, because we don't really have the products table by the subcategory. It's actually the SKU of the product, which is forming the products table. In between the subcategories, there are several models and SKUs of different mountain bikes that you're supposed to sell, which will accumulate to 541,000. So your products table is not by the subcategory, it's by the SKU. You can form these tables and build a relationship, but instead, I want to do something more complicated. I would like to allocate the budget. If I just take a look at actual versus budget, I don't get to see the allocations of that particular budget. What do I mean by allocations? Please take a look. Let me just go ahead and apply two filters in my sales table, one for the year, the other one for the subcategory, and I'll help you understand. I go back to my sales table, and I have already created the column, this column here. Let me just delete that column. And I'm going to change that particular column, and I'm just going to say that, hey, just get me the year. Since we are doing sales calculations, I'm just applying that on the order date. Press enter, and I just have years right here. Clear that filter, apply two filters, one for the year of 2001. I believe that was one, right? What was that? Where are your budgets? 2001, right? And the second filter is going to be mountain bikes. So I'm just going to come to the sales. We don't really have the mountain bikes filter, so I can just do a quick VLOOKUP and I can get that column here just to help you understand. So a new column, and I'm just going to write a quick VLOOKUP, which is nothing but related. Go over to my products table and fetch the name of the subcategory just to apply the filters, just to help you understand. Close that, commit to the formula, press enter. And I have the mountain bikes right here, which I can just definitely apply a filter and to take a look at that. Now I'm looking at 173 rows of data, which is right here, which are the actual sales transactions. Actually, you sold these many different SKUs of mountain bikes in 2001. Now the management says that I would want you to allocate that 541,000 of the total budget value to all of these transactions in the ratio of the total sales. What I mean by that? Take the sales amount. Take the sales amount. Divide that sales amount by the total of all the 173 transactions. That means I'd have to sum all of these, total it up. About 4,000 divided by whatever is the total is going to give me a percentage value, which is nothing but the allocation percentage. I will take that percentage value and I'll multiply that with 541,000, and I will get like a number. That number is allocated as the target or the budget value to this particular transaction, and then this particular transaction, this particular. Similarly, I'm going to get the budget allocated 541,000 to every single transaction value that has happened in this particular month. That's what I want to do. How do we do that? First of all, what type of relationships are we going to create? And then what exactly are we going to do to speed our calculation ridiculously fast? Please take a look. Now, the standard way of connecting my budgets is through that you connect the year to the date column. You can actually form like a date from that particular year, which you can actually connect it to your date table. You have the subcategory. We can form a bridge table in between. The bridge table can actually connect to the products, and the bridge table can actually connect to the budgets, which is only going to have the subcategories. And that is actually going to do the job pretty well, but the allocations will not happen. So what do? I am directly going to connect my budgets table to my sales table. Make the budgets table as like a lookup table or a master table, which is right here, and then connect that to a sales table. How do I do that? First of all, if you go take a look at the budgets table, the budgets table doesn't have any unique field for the one side of relationship to actively work on that. Bad, but I can create it. I know that for every single year, I just have one subcategory. The budget for any subcategory is not going to be given twice. If that was the mistake that somebody did, then I would have grouped it by Power Query. But fair. Right click, make a new column, and I'm just going to create like a concat column. And I'm going to say that I'd like to concat my year, and I'd like to concatenate. Here's a little trick. Whenever you are doing a concatenation of two columns, I generally would prefer a little pipe symbol or any symbol in between so that the values become readable. If you concatenate everything together, which has a date or 2 or 3 fields, it becomes hard to read. And if you're trying to do some debugging or sorts, it becomes very hard to be able to take a look at what exactly is this concatenation. So it's nice to have that. And I'd like to concatenate the subcategory, which is my subcategory. Close that, press enter. That is nothing but the unique field. Cool. Now I'd have to create the same concatenation column in the sales table, which is not going to be unique. That's what the many side is. And let's just use this column as a concat column. So I'll say concat, hey, take the subcategory from the products table, which is nothing but a VLOOKUP. And I don't know, did I have year first? I think I had year first. So let me just not make that mistake. So I am going to actually get my order date. God, order date, no space, and find the year of that and link that with my concatenate that with the subcategory. Clear off that filter, and that's my concat. Now let's just go connect these two. So the concat here gets connected to the concat here. Where is the concat? Right here. Right here is the concat, gets connected, and that actually forms the relationship. Right, one-to-many standard relationship. Let's just verify. This is year and the month. Sorry, year and the product subcategory. Year and the product subcategory. Cool. Now, how do we start to allocate? What you can do is, I'm going to write a long DAX measure to be able to allocate it. Then I'm going to kind of make that measure fast. So please take a look. I'll make another pivot table, which is where I can just copy the previous pivot table. Control C, come back right here. Control P. Don't need that. Don't need this and this. Don't need this and this. Total sales is good. Don't need the year as well. This is good. All right. Now, if this is my sales of the month of July, I want to find out that of the total budget that was allocated, how much budget for all the products that have sold in the month of July gets accumulated in the month of July, and then similarly for August and September and October and things like that. How do I do that? Just recall the calculation, people. The calculation, what was the calculation? The calculation was that I had to sum the individual sales amount with the category total. So if I'm selling bottles and kgs, I will apply this filter, 2004 and bottles and kgs, take that value and divide it by the total of that particular filter, which is nothing but the year filter and the product category filter, and then find the percentage. That percentage is going to give me a percentage allocation. That percentage allocation gets multiplied with the total budget of the year. Okay, no problem. Let me just build that calculation. The first thing that you would need is the denominator, which is the yearly total of the subcategory of the product. Like how much do you sell for bottles and kgs in 2004 as the total, because that is going to be a denominator. On the denominator, you will keep the numerator, which is your sales amount, to get the percentage. Once you have the percentage, it's pretty easy to multiply that with the budget. I'm going to create a column here, first of all, in the sales table, which is not good, not at all good. So I'm just going to create a column here just to explain you what that calculation is. Let's just go create that calculation and say that, what is that? My sales annual subcat sales, yearly sales, whatever, right? And I'm going to create that calculation. I'm going to say that, hey, calculate. I have a measure called total sales, but the total sales is going to be calculated respecting two filters, one for the year, one for the product subcategory. Now that I have created this particular concat, which is nothing but the concatenation of two items, which I want to respect it in the filter, let me just present that thing. So I'm going to say that, hey, only let this column be filtered. Let's remove the filters from all the columns. So for that, I can just use something like all except, which has the table name as the first part, and which column do I want to keep as a filter. Rest all the filters are removed. So which is nothing but the concat, close that bracket and close that bracket. Commit. Now, if you take a look at this, I apply a filter, 2004, let's say road bikes, click on OK. 2001 road bikes, click on OK. And this is the value that I get, 2.68 million. Let's verify that. Let's be sure. So I am going to copy this entire column, Control C. There are 840 rows. Let's just go over and insert a blank sheet. Paste that right here. The total should be 2.6 million, which I get to see right here. Seems to be right. Moving on. Now, this particular column is my denominator. I can take my numerator and divide it by the denominator, and I can find the percentage, and I can multiply that with my budget total to get my value, which is easy, not a problem. The trouble is that I have created a column in the fact table. This could have like millions and millions and millions of rows of data, and in that scenario, it's not a good habit to add storage capacity to your model to just do the simple calculation. You might as well think that, hey, I can make a measure to do this calculation. Sure enough, let's just do a measure. So I am going to go ahead and start to create the entire calculation in a form of a single measure that does not uses this particular calculation. All right, just a hint. People, if you think about the logic of the calculation is nothing but in every single row of this sales table, I want to do the division of the current sales amount, that's my numerator, by the total of the entire year. That gives me my percentage. If I'm able to do that calculation, I should be good. And I have the values for both. I have the numerator value and I have the formula for the denominator as well. So all that I would want to do is pack everything into a SumX function and we're good to go. So I'm just going to go ahead, right click and do a SumX function. And I'm going to call this as budget allocated, which is nothing but a simple SumX. Go in every single row of which table? The sales table. In every single row of the sales table, I want to fetch two numbers. My numerator, what is that? My sales amount. And what is my denominator? Let's just do a divide function right here. That's my numerator. And what's my denominator? The denominator is nothing but the same calculate function that I wrote in the sales table, which I did not, appreciate it that much. So I can just do that particular calculation right here, which is nothing but calculate total sales, not total due, but total sales, or except the sales and the concat, and close the bracket, and close the bracket, and close the bracket. This gives me the percentage, just the percentage. Now, if I take that percentage and multiply that with the budget, which I can easily fetch as a VLOOKUP from the budgets table, which is nothing but the budget value, this percentage, this is nothing but, if I can just write something here, this is the percentage allocation. This is nothing but the budget value. I've solved the problem. Commit to the formula, press enter, and I drag that particular calculation to my visual right here. And this is on rows again. I can just remove on rows thing, and this will actually show up as two different columns. Now, this is nothing but the budget that was allocated in that entire month. So you sold 473,000, while the budget for all the products that was supposed to be sold was 465,000. So we met the budget. Pretty good. Now comes the data modeling. As of now, both these calculations that we have done present you a caveat of your model getting bloated up or slowing down and things like that. This is not very efficient way of doing the calculation. Why? What we are doing as of now is repeatedly for every single row of the sales table, we are doing a denomination calculation, although this denominator remains the same, people. Let's just say that we had filtered 173 rows that were for the same product and for the same year. This number doesn't change for all of those values. It's the same thing, but because we have created a measure, it's an iterator. It does that calculation for every single row of the sales table, gets repeated again and again and again and again and again. Could there be a way to pre-calculate this value and make my calculation faster? Sure enough, what I'm going to do is I'm still going to add a column, but not in my fact table, but in my budgets table, which hardly has about, I don't know, 50 rows, not even 50 rows. Please take a look. So I'm going to go ahead in my budgets table. In my budgets table, I have what? 38 rows of data. In this particular table, I'm going to add a column. What is the column going to do? The column is going to do the denomination calculation. What is that? If I apply these two filters, 2001 and mountain bikes, in the sales table, what happens to be the total? Because that is the total which happens to be my denominator. Right click, new column. I can just say that this is my sales denominator. How do I carry these filters, and do a reverse lookup, find all the matching values of 2001 and mountain bikes and sum them up? It's going to be the reverse of VLOOKUP, which is a related table. So I can do something like SUMX, a related table of the sales table. Note that we have established a relationship between the two tables. That means if this filter goes from the budgets table and filters my sales table, I am going to see all the values of 2001 and mountain bikes. Now, the related table function is going to contain all the filtered values for 2001 and mountain bikes in the first row. When it goes to the next row, the next filter, all the values for that, and the next values. But this related table function actually delivers you a table as an output. I don't really want a table. What I want, and if you don't believe me, take a look. So if I can just maybe wrap the function around in the count rows function. Count rows asks you for a table. For which table do you want to count the rows? I want to count the rows for this related table, and close the bracket and press enter. If you remember correctly, the filter that we applied for 2001 and mountain bikes gave us 173 filtered rows. That means it's actually looking at the set of filtered data for that respective filter. Cool, no problem. But I don't really need the count. I need the sum of the total. So sum of the amount. So SUMX, where are you? SUMX that is my table. In that table, I have an amount column. Please take a total of that, close the bracket and press enter. That is nothing but the total or the denominator that I wanted for every single row of the sales table. Cool. What we have been able to do through a data modeling effort is that we have been able to calculate the total value of the entire year. Pre-calculated, not being calculated again and again, pre-calculated. Now, because the value is pre-calculated and I just have to fetch that value through the related function or through a lookup, it's going to be a lightning fast calculation. Please take a look. I am going to go and let this measure stay, or maybe I can just rename this as budget slope, press enter, and I can copy that entire thing, make another calculation and call this as budget fast. And I can say that, hey, take the amount from every row of the sales table, but the denominator, which is this particular value, is not going to be calculated each time. It's just going to be fetched from the budgets table, which is nothing but my VLOOKUP. From the budgets table, I can just right here, see sales denominator. So I can just fetch that right here. This becomes my numerator. This becomes my denominator. This gives me a percentage of the pre-calculated value. I get multiplied with the budget, commit to the formula, press enter. Quick validation, it should give you the same output. It actually gives me the same output, no difference in the output, but take a look at the speed. Make a new pivot table. Let's just also remove the sales from here. This is the slow, copy that, go over to the new sheet, paste that. Where are you? Copy that, paste that. And I now place the new calculation right here. Let's just run the performance analyzer. So right here, view tab, where are you? Performance analyzer, start recording, clear the visuals, refresh the visuals. It takes about 87 milliseconds, and it takes about 14 milliseconds for the DAX query to run. Now, it's not a DAXing calculation because this is just 60,000 rows of data. But imagine this on 500 million rows of data or 100 million rows of data. This is going to be a slower calculation. Take a look at the fast one. I go to the next one. I clear everything and I refresh the visuals. If you take a look at the DAX query, 5 milliseconds, which is 3 times as fast as the previous one. So essentially, what I wanted to bring to you in this particular little thing that we have here is, rather than thinking of writing sophisticated DAX for any complicated problem, think of ways where you can tweak the data model, pre-calculate the value, or just get the value from somewhere in a form of a table, or change the way the relationship is built to be able to drive easier DAX and faster calculations. That's it. Thanks.
Super.
I don't know.
It was like you're talking when you're writing the DAX code as if you're talking with the data, you know, some X, some then. It was really, you're literally communicating with the data when you're writing the DAX. That was super.
Thank you.
I'll just check if any questions are there. But by the way, there was one question on the YouTube. Shiva, he asked, will you please share your system configuration because it is working very smoothly? Would you like to?
You should talk to the man here, Christian. So he attended one of the live training sessions that I did it the last time, which is about 2-3 months ago. And my system was crashing in each and every session. Undeniably, repeatedly, my system was crashing. And these guys were just holding up nicely and patiently that he's going to come back, he's going to do the training session. And he recommended that you actually should have a desktop with 2 different monitors. And I'm right now sitting with 2 different monitors following his advice. So if you want to take a look at what system should you buy, maybe Christian, you can just write a blog post on that and help people out who are just trying to have a faster system. But this is an AMD processor, I think a 5 series or something. It's 32 gigs of RAM with 2 22, 24-inch monitors. That's what I have. But all thanks to Christian.
Christian, he even recommended me some nice configuration also. when
Yeah,
mine
so
was crashing during signal meter.
It's not about the monitors, it's about what's in here. And cannot be replaced. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Christian.
The other ones are only tools. So.
Great. So I'll just check on the chat. You can feel free to check on the chat if anything is there. Otherwise, we can end our session. Thank you very much, Chandeep. Chandeep, it was a wonderful session. As I told you, when I was watching your session, and I was literally feeling that when you're writing the DAX measures, you're literally talking with your data and you're getting it into that flow. That was really superb. I really enjoy. And from the first session I've been watching from Alan, then Christian, and then thank you for coming in Saudi Arabia. Also, we really appreciate your contribution. And I would just leave some always at the last or the end of the session. I always let my speaker speak anything, something like any quote or anything, any last and final words before we end from YouTube. And my friends, we'll be seeing you next in the meetup, so make sure that you register. And by the way, Chandeep, he also has some great courses, so you can go and grab some courses. Am I right, Chandeep? You have it on Goodly, right?
Yeah. I have a few courses on DAX and Power Query. I'm also going to be doing a live training session, which now I'm planning to do it every single quarter. So we do like 15 odd people come together and we do a lot of data modeling, DAX, and that sort of stuff.
Which is totally worth it.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to take that details from Chandeep and I'm going to post it in this video description. And also I'm going to share it on my the meetup email, which I'm regularly following up. So feel free to go and join the session for Chandeep. And thank you, my friends. And I will leave the floor now for Chandeep to say any last and final word for the YouTube audience, but we will be still on the Zoom.
Final words, final words. Nothing, just I don't know. I kind of feel awkward if people ask me to talk about outside of the things that I really know.
Anything.
So
Excel or Power BI, you can say anything. Last and final word.
A lot of people tend to ask me this question that, hey, I'm starting my journey with Power BI. What should I learn first? So I just generally tend to tell people that do not really get caught up behind too much, too much in the visualizations layer, which is actually good, pretty decent actually. But you should actually focus a lot on data modeling, Power Query, and DAX, which is the heart. If you're able to write a calculation, there can be 1,000 ways to present it. But yeah, that's actually what you should focus on. Rest everything is actually going to fall in place. So if you just want to narrow down your journey of learning DAX, that's what I would highly recommend. Learn to model well, learn to write a query to clean up your data well, and learn DAX to do some sophisticated calculations. That's it. Thanks for inviting me.